Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
The most common trope across all Disney parks, and the thing that I think of when I think of the Disney parks, are the themed lands that immerse guests into a beautiful and complex scene. Toy Story Land makes you feel like you shrunk down to the size of a toy and are now walking around Andy's backyard with Woody and Buzz and the gang. Each country and world showcase feels like the nations that they're based on. Galaxy's Edge feels like you're in a galaxy far, far away. And the Africa and Asia parts of Animal Kingdom feel like Disney just ripped out pieces of the continents. They're obviously not all winners, like Dino Land USA feeling like a cheap carnival, but these lands truly solidify Disney as the kings of theming. But the first two to do it were, of course, Disneyland and the Magic Kingdom. So I thought it would be fun to go through all 6 Magic Kingdom lands and put what I think the best and worst ride is in terms of enjoyability and theming. So let's start at the front of the park with Main Street USA. Now, technically, Main Street doesn't have rides. It has vehicles. So those will have to do for right now. And I did consider the railroad, but since it does stop in Storybook Circus and Frontierland, I feel like it would just be better to exclude this from the list altogether. But the best ride in Main Street is probably the Omnibus for the better and more unique views it gives guests Main Street due to it being a double-decker vehicle. And while the other vehicles are basically all the same, albeit just looking different, I think I will give the worst spot to the horse-drawn carriage. And while you may argue, hey, no, it has that cute horse. It's the only one with a living, breathing animal. That gives it points, right? That's actually why I think it's at the bottom. Because it's a living creature. Which means it smells bad. While the horse is definitely cute and I love to look at it, it still has to go to the bathroom like everything else does, and I don't really want to be smelling all of that while enjoying my trip around Main Street. Moving on to Liberty Square, it's clearly between only 2 rides, and I think it is definitely, this was the easiest to pick. The Liberty Square Riverboat is the best ride. I mean, it's so relaxing and just Haunted Mansion doesn't even compare. Obviously, I'm joking. The Haunted Mansion is better in every single capacity. And it is the best ride in Liberty Square, as well as the best ride in all of Magic Kingdom, at least in my opinion. The amazing animatronics, which were pretty much revolutionary for the time, the amazing effects, the genius of the Imagineers, and the music, the air conditioning, the queue, just the ambiance in general, it just screams Disney and puts guests in the proper mood as soon as they pass by it. And the building, being based off a real-life building from the time period, fits perfectly into Liberty Square. While the riverboat is nice and relaxing, guests rode a free-floating riverboat just coming to the park. And it fits better in Frontierland anyway, because it's a riverboat. And the first riverboat was invented in 1807. And Liberty Square is a 1700s America during the Revolutionary War. Changing gears towards the Disneyest land in the park, Fantasyland. I feel the best ride in Fantasyland is actually a new Fantasyland with the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. While it is on the shorter end in terms of ride length, a coaster dark ride hybrid is absolutely amazing, and the beautiful animatronics and the extremely classic hi-ho music makes for one of my favorite dark ride scenes out of any Disney ride. Plus, it blends in so perfectly with New Fantasyland to the point I don't always notice I'm even near it until a car rides by and I hear guests screaming in joy. And as for the worst ride in Fantasyland, as well as in my opinion the worst ride in all of Disney World, is the Prince Charming Regal Carousel. While it does blend in nice to Fantasyland and makes for a good centerpiece, and it has that nice tie to the carousel that helped Walt Disney come up with the idea for Disneyland, it's still just a carousel, all things considered. I can experience a very similar thing at my local mall, the only difference being I'm not at Disney World. Moving on to Adventureland, aside from Liberty Square, this was definitely the other easiest. Pirates of the Caribbean is one of the best Disney dark rides ever made, and I don't think I'm making any enemies while claiming that. The amazing animatronics, the extremely iconic music, the smell of the water itself, and walking through the queue feeling it getting more ocean-like as the music plays and it gets cooler. It just sets you up for an amazing ride. While yes, Disneyland's Pirates of the Caribbean is definitely better, it is for good reason technically, and it's still way better than Jungle Cruise, and especially the worst ride, the Magic Carpets of Aladdin. First off, it's taking up way more room than it needs to be. Before it was in there, it was just free space right there. It really opened up the land a lot more. And it's just a worse Dumbo and a worse Astro Orbiter. There's no real point of it being there, especially since it's just making it harder to maneuver around the land. The land which is my favorite themed out of all the lands in Magic Kingdom. So I wanted to give this land more love, and I think removing it altogether will be better for the land. Moving on to Tomorrowland, this was probably the hardest to pick. There were a lot of good choices for the best ride. Buzz Lightyear and its competitive ride system, the People Mover and its relaxing and entertaining ride, and Space Mountain for its thrills in the dark. And while they are all great, I would definitely say Space Mountain is the best. It is iconic and its thrill in the dark is amazing. Plus the building itself is so iconic and fits perfectly into Tomorrowland. And as for the worst, this is easily the Tomorrowland Speedway. While it's definitely great for giving kids their first taste of driving, it doesn't fit great into the land. It makes the area smell terrible, and the ride itself is wide open and doesn't give riders anything to really look at or take in. Definitely the worst ride of the land in my opinion. And finally, Frontierland, which is an odd case. Before, I would have said Splash Mountain is easily the best for its amazing thrill, the wet it gives ya, the amazing songs, and the overall feeling of the ride. But Splash Mountain is gone, and I haven't ridden Tiana's Bayou Adventure, so I can't fairly say where it ranks. So technically, I have to put Thunder Mountain as the best and the worst, unless I want to consider the boat ride over the Tom Sawyer's Island a ride. However, I do think I will prefer Tiana's overall for the same reasons as Splash Mountain. I love Thunder Mountain, and it is an amazing coaster, especially with the theming, and it blends into Frontierland perfectly. I just don't prefer it over the amazing storytelling that Splash Mountain and what looks like Tiana had. And that's that. Definitely a smaller video compared to my last one, but I still had fun making it, and I hope you all had fun watching it. Thank you for watching, and if you liked what you see, hit the subscribe button, and have a great day.